Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Salebox for the 23rd of November 2012. My name is TotalBiscuit, rounding up your daily Steam deals, as well as a few others from around the internet, by popular demand. So we'll be looking at the GoG Sale a little bit later on in the show, with Green Man Gaming and Gamersgate coming over the next couple of days. If I stuffed them all in one video, it would be like an hour long. Alright, let's have a look at the offerings from Steam, shall we? We'll kick it off with Skyrim, 50% off, that's $30, €24.99, £17.49. That would be the cheapest price we've seen it so far. However, a big warning on this one, you can get it cheaper at Green Man Gaming, or if you don't want to buy on Steam, you can buy from various other places like Gamersgate and Amazon that are charging the same price for this title. So, if you go to Green Man Gaming, you will get it for $30 or your original equivalent. However, you can apply a code, a 25% off code, to the cart on the way out, which of course cuts the price down even more. It does stack with the sale, and it's really kind of fantastic. The other thing about Green Man Gaming, for those of you who haven't used it, is that you can actually remove games from your account and essentially trade them in for credit against other games, which is really quite a nice system indeed. Bear in mind that it does not work for all games, and if I am not too mistaken, it's not going to work for Skyrim because that is a Steamworks game, so you can't do anything with that. But anything that is not a Steamworks game can be traded, as far as I'm aware. I have a few games on Green Man, not a huge amount, but the ones that I have got do seem to work fine, and the capsule client they use is rock solid from what I can tell, so pretty good site to get it from. For those of you who don't know, all three of you, Skyrim is of course a first-person open-world RPG. Great world, lousy combat is probably the best way that I would describe it. A really awesome world to explore. I personally found it a little bit flat, just because the world doesn't really react in the way that I would hope when you actually do something really important. It's very, very odd indeed. I would expect to be recognized for my great deeds, and it just doesn't happen. There are, however, many people that would disagree with me and really adore Skyrim. The modding scene is also vibrant, to say the least. I'd also like to point out their first major DLC, Dawnguard, is also 50% off. I believe this might be the first time that's been on sale, so definitely worth a look. As I said before, though, the price is pretty much universal across the board, so buy it from your favorite retailer. It's still a Steamworks game anyway, so if you have something like, say, the IGN Prime discount on Gamersgate, which is that 15% off lifetime discount, then you'll be able to save even more. Of course, use the code for the best discount over at Green Man Gaming. War of the Roses, 50% off. That takes it down to $15, €15, and £12.49. This is the cheapest that I've seen this game thus far. It's a pretty good deal. This game did only come out about a month or so ago, and it's really good, as far as I'm concerned anyway. It's also about to bring out its first piece of free DLC, which contains a lot more new weapons, new game mode, and new armor pieces, so that's definitely worth having. The game is pretty good. It uses the Mount and Blade style of combat, for those of you familiar with it. If you're not, then it's a third-person melee medieval game, whereby you have a 4-directional block system, as well as a 4-directional attack system. So you hold an attack in a particular direction to power it up, and then swing, and see as to whether or not you actually hit them. Pretty brutal game. Really, really good ranged system. There's been plenty of comparisons between this and Chivalry. Chivalry has the better melee, but I would say that War of the Roses has the better range. It also has mounted combat, which is something that Chivalry does not have. It is fairly limited in terms of game modes, although they are, as I said, about to remedy that with a new game mode being added in for free very soon, and a bunch more free DLC being planned. So it's a really good price for a game that is still very much alive. It's not as popular as Chivalry at the moment, but it does have plenty of active servers and is well worth your time if you're into multiplayer medieval action. Saints Row the Third, 75% off, taking it down to $10, €7.49 and £7.49. Good deal for the Europeans, good deal for everyone really. That's an astonishingly good price, and is unfortunately just a little bit indicative of the fact that THQ is in a bit of trouble. A lot of these discounts have been very deep indeed. You can also pick up the full package for a few dollars more, which comes with a hell of a lot of DLC. I believe it's all of it, actually. Yes, it is. It comes with a season pass. That's a stupidly good deal. That is beyond ridiculous. There is, if I recall correctly, enough DLC to sink a battleship for this game. Admittedly, most of it is vehicles and weapons and things like that, but the big stuff is the Trouble with Clones, Gangsters in Space, and Genki Bowl 7. There were some arguments that this was not worth the full price, but certainly at this price, you'd be kind of dumb not to pick up the full package, as far as I'm concerned. It's a really good GTA-style game set in the near future. It's completely off its rocker. It's what GTA 4 perhaps should have been. Crude sense of humor, ridiculous situations, great multiplayer. Veterans of the series would argue that Saints Row 2 was arguably a better game. However, what I will say is this game runs a hell of a lot better on PC, so even if the content isn't quite as good, the fact that the PC port does not suck is a major factor playing in its favor. Not a bad price either. I'd say this is arguably my deal of the day. It is that good a price for that good a game, especially with the DLC so discounted. I would recommend it wholeheartedly. Transformers Fall of Cybertron, $30, €24.99, £14.99. This is a particularly good deal for those of you in the UK. Fall of Cybertron is one of my favorite games this year, and I am not ashamed to admit that. It is an astonishing Transformers experience. It's just an astonishing third-person shooter experience in general. Every level is varied, the level design is great, it's graphically impressive, the shooting is extremely satisfying, great voice acting, great writing, really cool multiplayer mode as well, which was quite surprising, honestly. However, I did have some reservations about its length, considering this was released at a full price of $60 in the US and, of course, your regional equivalent, so that wasn't too good for a lot of people. This is a fairly recent Activision release, which means that it's unlikely to go any lower in the Christmas sale. You will see it eventually go down to 75%. That's something that we saw with the previous game, War for Cybertron, but it did take quite a long time to make that happen. So this is a good price to grab it at. The PC version is good in comparison to the previous game, which was not. That was actually locked at 30 frames per second. This one doesn't really have that problem, although it does have a few issues with key bindings. There are 5 separate preset layouts, as opposed to being able to actually rebind. Check out PCGamingWiki.com, as always, for information on the technical aspect of this title. I love this game to death. Check out the video to find out why. For the pricing recommendation, if you happen to be in the US, then you can also pick this game up from Amazon. If you do that, you're going to get $5 worth of credit towards a digital sale they're going to be having in January 2013 on select titles. So you do, in the long run, actually save some money there if you grab it from Amazon. It's still a Steamworks game anyway, so if you are in the US, you would be better off getting it from Amazon. Crysis 2, 70% off, takes it down to $12 at €10.49, £7.49. This is the Maximum Edition, which includes 2 map packs and a couple of extra weapons, as well as a few limited edition unlocks. The single player mode is what you want to be buying this game for, honestly. If you pick it up for the multiplayer, you're probably going to have a bad time. There were reports, certainly very early on, within the multiplayer that it was absolutely chock full of hackers. It's not a particularly fun multiplayer mode anyway. It's essentially Call of Duty with cloaking and the ability to jump pretty high. Not what I would call all that impressive. The single-player mode, especially with the high-definition texture pack and some of the mods that are being worked on for the graphics, is pretty damn fun. I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's a nice balance between linear gameplay and the standard Crysis style of open-world roaming. It's set in a city, so you're kind of limited by the buildings on either side, but you can usually approach an objective from a couple of different ways. The shooting is very satisfying, the plot is reasonable, I guess, and it also contains a hell of a lot of aliens, without all of the annoying alien stuff from the original Crysis. It is a good, solid first-person shooter experience. It is not what I would call exceptional, which is unfortunate because that's what I was hoping for with that game, but nonetheless, it is fun. And that is a pretty solid discount on the game, although I would probably expect it to go lower in the Christmas sale, because $12 for a game that's that old, which did come out a year and a half ago, is still not an incredible discount. Just bear in mind, of course, that EA is in control of these discounts, so it's entirely possible that they will just hold back on that till the end of time. In a rather hilarious move, it's still more expensive on Origin, if you can actually believe that. Farming Simulator 2013! 50% off. Wow, that's fantastic. 50% off a game that shouldn't even be out yet. 2013, bro. Time travel with that tractor, yo. $15, €12.49, £9.99. No, you are not going to get me to recommend a farming simulator. These games sell so much in Europe, it's not even funny. I don't understand why, but they do. I cannot comment on this game because I have precisely zero interest in it. If it was possible to have negative interest in a game, as in, I would walk into a room and the interest of everyone else would be slowly sucked out of them as a result of my presence, then that would accurately describe me when it comes to Farming Simulator 2013. As it stands, I can't tell you a damn thing. Alright, before we go on, let's go and have a look at GOG. They have a special sale going on. It's pick 5 and pay $10. Pretty good sale. It doesn't just include old games. In fact, it only includes fairly recent titles. GOG is known for making really old games work on modern platforms, but recently they've spread out into dealing with certain high-end commercial titles as well as quite a lot of indies, and they do a pretty good job on it. Prices are universal across the board. This is cool for the Europeans particularly because the chances are you're going to save a lot of money here. An awful lot of Steam titles, including the ones involved in sales, do this whole $1 is €1 thing, which is, as you are well aware, clearly not true. So what you can do here is you can buy them for dollars, but you get a favorable conversion from euros. So what do we got? Well, we've got Resonance, Botanicula, To the Moon, Gemini Rue, Alan Wake's American Nightmare, the Blackwell Bundle, Torchlight, Uplink Hacker Elite, Geneforge 1-5, Machinarium Collector's Edition, Space Chem, Defcon, Trine, Symphony, Darwinia, Mutant Muds, Anomaly Warzone Earth, Multiwinia, Unmechanical, and The Ball. And you can pick 5 of these, and that will give you the $10 deal, so $2 each if you buy 5. So which of these do I recommend? Botanicula, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt. That is a fairly recent title and it's charming. To the Moon, one of the most emotional game experiences you'll probably ever have. Heartily recommend it without question. Gemini Rue is supposed to be pretty damn good as well. Kind of got this whole Beneath a Steel Sky vibe going on with it. It is a neo-noir sci-fi adventure. Kind of point and click in style, but it does actually have some combat involved in it. That's certainly recommended. Alan Wake's American Nightmare, it's surprising that you can even get this as part of that deal. It's probably the best value. That's usually a $15 game. I wouldn't say it's a cut down version of the original Alan Wake, but it is a shorter standalone experience, which also has a few shooting modes, just kind of wave-based stuff. It's pretty fun, honestly, and it's certainly worth $2. No one's really going to argue on that one. Torchlight, if you don't already have it, pretty damn good, although it might very well be worth waiting for Torchlight 2 to go on sale, because that's just a flat-out better game. Uplink Hacker Elite, one of my personal favorite games. It's quite an old one, but it involves hacking. That's pretty much what the whole game is based around. It's very interesting indeed by Introversion, one of their first games. I would certainly be having a look at Machinarium as well, which is a really, really charming game. It is a point-and-click whereby you control a little robot and you have to solve puzzles in order to rescue your friend. Graphically exceptional, as I said before, very charming, great aesthetic, great music. Defcon, definitely worth having. That is a strategy game, assuming you've got friends to play it with. I wouldn't really play this solo, it's more of a multiplayer game, but if you've got a bunch of friends, then it's a really good mutually assured destruction strategy game with some interesting backstabbing and a haunting atmosphere. People keep telling me to recommend Space Chem. I am too stupid to recommend Space Chem, but if you are a smart person, it's rated as one of the best puzzle games to come out over the last few years. Trine, certainly worth having. It is a puzzle platformer involving combat and 3 different classes. Really great graphic style, absolutely charming fairy tale world. Symphony is there as well. That's also a great game. This really isn't helping you all that much, is it? No, there are too many good games in this list. Symphony is a shooter that's based on your music, and I'm very surprised to see it in this discount so soon because it has only been out for a few months. Darwinia and Multiwinia. Multiwinia, of course, being the newer version of that game. It's hard to describe. It's kind of like a strategy cannon fodder-ish game set in a weird video game world. Very difficult to describe, but certainly worth having a look at if you can find people to play it with. Anomaly Warzone Earth, that would be a reverse tower defense game where you have to guide your vehicles through various obstacles. Great graphic style, terrible voice acting. Unmechanical, a charming puzzle game, and I did do a WTF is on this quite recently. It's pretty short. You can beat it in about 3 hours, which is why it's great to be part of this particular bundle. And The Ball, a first-person puzzle game involving a giant ball. Essentially, you solve puzzles by rolling this giant ball into various places and shooting it around the place with a grappling gun. It's pretty great. Honestly, it really is. So there's a quick rundown of what's going on in that sale. I would strongly recommend that you indulge in it. Hell, there's enough games to actually indulge in it twice there, if it's even possible to do so. So I would certainly have a look at that. And no doubt people are going to criticize me for saying, oh, well, why is this game not here? Why is this game not here? I can only really recommend the games that I've actually played. So it's difficult to say that Resonance is a good game, even though it's had quite a lot of hype behind it. But you might want to be looking for yourself on some of those titles to try and figure out which ones you want the best. Also bear in mind that some of these are actually available on Mac as well, so if you happen to be a Mac gamer for some reason watching these videos, then there are a couple of games in that list that may take your fancy. Alright, let's have a look at the indie highlights. Bear in mind, these are not necessarily the best prices they will ever get. The reason that we're covering this is that if any of these go on flash sale for cheaper, which they sometimes do, then you will know exactly what you're looking for. Anything that's 75% off or higher than that, chances are that's not going to be any cheaper, so it's worth picking up. These deals should last the entire sale, so if there's a game you do particularly like, then I would recommend, of course, that you wait until the last day, just to make sure it doesn't go on a daily deal or a flash sale. Starting with Machinarium. There we go. I've already talked about this, and it's cheaper on GoG, so get it there. They Bleed Pixels, 66% off. $3.39, €3.39, and £2.37. That's a really good price for something that hasn't been out all that long. That's probably a recommend, honestly. I enjoyed this game quite a bit. It is a 8-bit style pixel adventure, and it involves horribly slaughtering various monsters and some precision platforming. That's a really good price for it. I'd be very surprised to see it go any lower during this sale, considering its actual age, which is not a huge amount at all. Cortex Command, 50% off. That's $10, €10.49, £7.49. Kind of hard to recommend this because they've been working on this for about like a billion years, and even now, the release version of Cortex Command is still not necessarily up to par. It's a very odd game. It's got a lot of ambition. It essentially involves building a base and constructing an army of droids with which to defend it. You can call in a huge amount of droids and weapons and items from orbit using rocket ships. The interface is not quite as good as I would like. I did do a little bit on this a very long time ago with one of the alpha versions as part of the Humble Indie Bundle. It's still hard for me to recommend in its current state at the moment, and it is, to many people, just a little bit impenetrable. It seems to be lacking in direction. One way or the other, I will eventually, I hope, have the time to really delve into this game, but that time will not be now. Price is not bad considering, but it's still not exactly what I'd call a complete game, so you may wish to avoid at 50% off. Stacking, also 50% off. This isn't really a very good sale because it has been cheaper for $3.74 multiple times in the past. Actually, during the summer sale, it was way more discounted than this, so it may be something you want to avoid. It's a pretty neat puzzle game whereby you have to bypass objectives by stacking inside these other little Russian dolls, which is really kind of great. The way that the narrative is done is fantastic, very old-timey, but at that price, it's not necessarily worthwhile. I would perhaps hold off on that unless you're very desperate to grab a hold of stacking and look for a 75% off on it, because it has happened before, so it may very well happen again in the Christmas sale. Blocks That Matter, 60% off, takes it down to a paltry $2, €2, or £1.59. Probably not going to see it go any lower than that, and if it does, well, you're going to save maybe 30 cents. Whoopity frickin' doodah day. What can you buy with that these days? Blocks That Matter is a fairly entertaining block-based puzzle game. It's got a nice graphic style to it, and if you want a thorough look at it, I would suggest you actually go and watch the Yogs cast on it, because they did a much more entertaining job at explaining it than I ever could, so do go and have a look at that one. Dust Force at 50% off, that's $5, €3.49, and £3.49. This game now includes the level editor, which is a big plus. Really nice precision platformer, great graphic style, great soundtrack. This has been in a Humble Bundle before, something to suggest there, so a lot of people probably already own this game. There's also the possibility that it may pop up as a bonus in a Humble Bundle going forward, because they have done that before, so that's something to consider. This is, however, the lowest price it has otherwise been on Steam, and it's difficult to find it cheaper anywhere else. So it's a good, solid game, although if you're the kind of person that likes this kind of thing, chances are you already own it anyway. Great game for what it is, though. There's no real question about that. Defense Grid, 75% off. That is $2.49, €2.24, and £1.74. It ain't getting any cheaper than that, folks. This has been discounted multiple times in the past. It's a fairly old game, but it's probably one of the best tower defense ever It is so very good. Those of you who watch StarCraft 2, this is also recommended by Artosis, and he knows his stuff when it comes to strategy games. All of the DLC, which includes map packs, which is actually very well worth having, as well as a full story campaign featuring GLaDOS, is also 75% off. So yeah, you really should be buying this if you're into tower defense. It's got an excellent story, which is something that tower defense usually doesn't have. It's got really great narrative and voice acting, something you don't usually look for in tower defense. But Defense Grid: The Awakening is awesome. They are working on a sequel right now, so here's hoping they're able to actually release that. COGS 75% off, that is $2.49, €2.24, and £1.74. Once again, you're probably not going to see this go much lower. This game has also been in an indie bundle in the past. It's a pretty charming puzzle game, if a little bit dull. Honestly, it involves putting cogs together in order to solve puzzles and things like that. Graphically quite impressive, but otherwise something that I'm personally not all that interested in. And last but by no means least, Rochard or Rockard, whichever you prefer. It is 50% off. That takes it down to $5, €5, and £3.99. This has also been cheaper in an indie bundle in the past, and went on sale in September for less than this as well, so might be best to hold off on this one on the basis that it might be cheaper later on. One way or the other, though, it is a competent and fairly entertaining physics-based platformer that involves manipulating gravity and throwing stuff around in order to complete your objectives. I enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was solid, not really exceptional in any real respect, but still a good amount of fun nonetheless, and thankfully is also a physics-based puzzle platformer that actually involves combat, which is something we don't sadly see an awful lot of. Alright folks, that rounds us up for the sale box today. Thank you very much for watching. Bear in mind, of course, that the deals from yesterday are still going on for the next 24 hours. Check out the previous sale box for my analysis on those particular titles. I'll see you next time.